Well, hello there. I'm Ryofu. How are you? I'm doing swell. You are watching The Gaming Harbinger. And I really hope this isn't your first time watching a video on the channel because we're going to take a different path today. We are going to take a path where this is going to be a free-flowing, well, maybe not a free-flowing. I don't know what I'm trying to say right now. But the thing is, I have no script on deck. No script. And the truth of the matter is, I wanted to make a video talking about Xbox, but I didn't want to spend all this time editing, writing a script for this stuff, but I still feel it's very important that I get my thoughts out there. I think it's very important to have this conversation. This is going to be quite possibly one of the biggest stories of 2026. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there is this article that came out by Tom Warren from The Verge, and it involves, I guess you could say, spilling the tea on Sarah Bond from Xbox. And she was the person that was under Phil Spencer and pretty much running things. And according to this article, it is saying that she is responsible for the This Is an Xbox campaign. Before we go any further, if you're new to the channel, like I said before, I am Ryofu. This is an anime and gaming channel. We do reviews, we talk about news like I'm doing here, and every so often we talk about conventions. If that sounds remotely intriguing to you, please consider subscribing. Keep in mind though, usually my videos are scripted to some degree. Sometimes there's some free-flowingness to it all, but this one's going to be all free-flowing. Now, we're not going to have any intro, we're just going to dive right into this. So my apologies, before we get started, I do want to take this time to say, as you guys know, I did make an Xbox video last year at some point, but I didn't talk about everything. The disappointment that I have been feeling about Xbox for a while now, it just hit a point where, you know, there's a lot of people that get caught up in the sauce and they get frustrated, they get angry, or it's the funniest thing ever to them. You know what I mean? Like if you're a fanboy of a certain console, you know, then for you, it's a wet dream. But for those of us that like a little competition and we play on multiple platforms, we like there to be competition. It's healthy. It looks good. And every so often, you know, you see one of these three do something unique, do something crazy, some more than others. You know, it got to a point where I was just like so annoyed and just so very disappointed. And most people don't think like this, but this is how I think. If I find myself in a situation where, you know, this just keeps, you know, problems just keep arising, and I'm like, I'm not gonna keep reporting on this stuff. I'm not gonna keep talking about it. I'd rather talk about the things that are positive that are happening, games that I'm excited about and whatnot. So I just stopped talking about Xbox for a little bit. And guess what? That was like the smartest thing I ever did, you know? I'm saying all that to say that if you find yourself in a situation where and I'm not even talking about from a social media standpoint, like you make videos or whatever. I'm just talking about in your life in general. If you find yourself in a situation where dealing with something and it just, you know, like whether it's politics or whether it's something like this, gaming related or drama in your family, whatever it is, you know, sometimes it's just good to step away. I think it's totally healthy and just, you know, just be like, you know what, I don't need this to consume my life, and I'm not going to let this just, in my case, it wasn't ever going to consume my life, but I was like, I'm not going to let this consume my channel. I'm not going to let, you know, half or even a third of my channel be some kind of Xbox apologist thing. That's not how this was supposed to be, so I just won't talk about it. All right, so let's get into this Verge report by Tom Warren. Now, I have so many thoughts on this, but I really just feel like the Tom Warren report is, the approach is just, it's a little despicable. Like, okay, I want you guys to look at it this way. if I've been gaming for a long time, and I know there's probably some things, some stories and whatnot that are swept under the rug, but let's go back. I've been playing since the 80s, and I've never heard of drama or quote unquote tea being spilt in this manner. Luke Plunkett of Aftermath, he did an article which I encourage you to check out. In Luke Plunkett's article, he states, instead we get a story that spends its first half taking shots at the departed Bond, as more than a dozen current and former Microsoft employees line up to criticize her efforts at the company, particularly her role in the disastrous This Is an Xbox marketing campaign. Microsoft is an enormous company. Xbox itself is a huge division, and loads of people are and have been responsible for everything that happens there, from the boss on down. When you consider Xbox has been in terminal decline since the moment the Xbox One was revealed over 15 years ago, a sequence of interwoven events and trends that are the result of countless people's missteps, it sure seems weird to dedicate so much time in the story to the legacy of a single black woman. Dude, that killer line, man, excellent. In terms of the communities in gaming, I'm really, really proud. Like, it really brought a smile to my face to see people that could just see through this, that could see that Sarah Bond is being used as a scapegoat. It's really sad. It really is sad. I am not trying to make it sound like she was a saint or she was an angel, but it's not a good look when we've had, tons and tons of people that made bad decisions way before Sarah Bond had even existed in gaming. And not only that, let's go back to Xbox in the early days. There were a lot of questionable stuff, but guess what? We never heard this kind of stuff. And Luke Plunkett, he pretty much did a comparison to sports and said, this is a tactic that we see in sports where someone comes in and, hey, this guy is so good, he's so amazing and talented, until he's not. The numbers are in the toilet, and it's like, you gotta go, buddy. You gotta go. And now that's when we unleash, we unleash the dogs on you. And that's when the stories come out and it's like, oh, well, you know what? We had to let this guy go because, things were bad. We were losing money. The people underneath this individual complained. It wasn't going well. So we had to make a hard decision. It's a story that, like I said, exists in other industries. I've never seen anything like this in gaming, though, and that's probably, I guess, the sickening part of it all. But this story is not anything new, and I'm glad people are jumping on board. Shout out to RGT85, shout out to Mr. Matty Plays, and absolutely Luke Plunkett. There's others as well that I haven't even, like I said, I've seen the articles, I've seen YouTube videos where, the thumbnails and stuff, and people are just, they're like, hold on a second, let's comb through this stuff. And I'm like, there you go. Job well done. That's how you get things done. You gotta be thorough. And I'm really grateful that the gaming community as a whole is not just gobbling this up and just saying, oh my God, it's Sarah Bond. She's the screw up. She's the Don Matrick. Oh my God. It's no, they're not buying it. It's so awesome. It's a good thing. It's a real good thing. And like I said, the people that are doing this, they're not defending Sarah Bond. It is very, two things can be true at the same time. There could have been stories where she was difficult to work with, But then at the same time, there is this thing, this hit piece that exists to try to make it look like, see, look, we're the good guys. And we didn't want any of this stuff. It was Sarah Bond that wanted all this stuff. And now we're going to make Xbox, you know, a brand that you love again. We're going back to the old stuff. The blades, remember the blades? Yeah, we're doing that. Come on. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it at all. I want you guys to know something. This is not a deep secret. Phil Spencer, 2013/2014, he did in fact save Xbox. I know it's a weird thing to hear. There was a time that the Xbox brand was down and out. And, you know, it's down and out now, but it was a little different. It was a little different. And it seems like it hit harder, even though they still sold units. You know, they still sold about 50 million units, which is insane. Phil Spencer made some promises. He was very vocal and active with the community, and it was great. It was really what the people needed, especially die-hard Xbox fans. It's what they needed at that time. Now, overall, if you want to ask me, Ryofu, did Phil deliver? Did he deliver on the promises and everything the past 10 years or so? You know, how did he do? And, you know, there's things that he did deliver. There's some things that, you know, were surprises. You know, I personally will say, I'll throw one out there, you know, that, you know, I don't hear a lot of people talk about, but I'm like, getting Phantasy Star out of Japan. That was huge in my book. That was huge. And I was really excited about it. That is something I even made a video about years ago. Actually, I think I also made, you know, when I was doing videos on reveals and E3 and stuff like that, I did make an additional video on that as well. But the point is that to me, that was a really cool moment. It was really unexpected. So there's been moments like that for sure where, you know, he did his thing. He stepped out and did something we weren't expecting at all. But I think, you know, what it boils down to, you know, if I'm oversimplifying everything, did Xbox come out with its own AAA release that was just a 10 out of 10? Did it come out with its version of God of War? No, it did not. And I think, you know, when you're looking at stuff critically, and I'm not even saying like they need their version of God of War. That is not what I'm saying at all. But they needed, you know, whatever version of that is Halo, whatever version of that is Master Chief. That's what the people wanted, and we didn't get that. And I'm not even talking about it from like, that's personally how I feel. I'm talking about the community as a whole. The community doesn't feel like that. I've always said that, you know, Halo Infinite, I thought the campaign was good. I don't really have any complaints on the campaign. Some people would complain and say that part of the game was not good. I would say the multiplayer was extremely underwhelming. It was very much so lacking. But I would never say that the campaign was whack. But some people would say that, and I don't agree with that statement at all. But when push comes to shove, the question you have to ask yourself is it now, or was it time for a new leadership? And so my answer and my response to this might surprise some, but I do believe now, or even a year or two ago, it was time for new leadership. I definitely don't think it should happen the way it's happened now. And I'm not saying, and I don't know if when I say new leadership, I mean Phil Spencer steps down. I don't know if that necessarily means Sarah Bond needed to leave as well. I don't know. But I did feel like it was time for some things to change. I think at the end of the day, you got to be fair about this stuff. You got to be rational about this and say to yourself, okay, you had years to, you know, deliver us that AAA game. Let's be clear here, multiple AAA high quality games that get 90s on Metacritic. I'm kind of joking. That's not my barometer. If I'm going to be completely honest, I would have been happy if we would have got another Japanese Phantasy Star moment where I didn't expect this to end up on Xbox and now I'm rushing to play it. Let's take a moment to talk about Asha Sharma. Now, I'm aware that a lot of people at this point are already dismissing her for being a fake gamer, only recently creating a gamer tag on Xbox and having some games on there. And it's like, oh, look, she's kind of faking this because someone else is clearly playing for her and getting really difficult achievements. Whatever, man. I don't really... You know what? Here's the thing with that. You don't have to be a pro gamer. You don't have to be... I've been playing video games for 30 years. I know some people do not like me saying that. They're like, no, we want a gamer to be running Xbox. In a perfect world, yes, I would totally agree with you. But it's not a requirement for me. I'm sorry, it isn't a requirement. So instead of looking at it that, you know, she just made an account yesterday, what we should say is, well, damn, at least she's picking up a controller now. If anything, I wish she would say, hey, I'm going to document my video game journey. The first game I'm going to play is Skyrim. Or I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, I think it would be good to just be like, hey, I'm going to be transparent. You know, I haven't actively been playing video games. I've been playing like random stuff here and there. I haven't played a video game in 15 years or something. Or, you know, it's only been mobile stuff. But now I'm going to dive into console, whatever it is. Or I'm going to dive into PC because I like building PCs, whatever it is. But I think that's the path moving forward. Asha Sharma should embrace being a newcomer and not try to hide it or whatever, or try to talk around it. Just say, hey, I haven't played a video game in 12 years. I look forward to jumping back. The last thing I played was this. Now, like I was saying, I think the other side of that is, I think as gamers, we should be receptive to new people coming in and we welcome them. Now, I'm speaking in general terms, so obviously people are like, I'm not gonna welcome her because she's at the top of Xbox, but she hasn't played a game in 15 years. But I think, you know, us as gamers, we should also look at gaming as one area where you could start at the age of 50. I remember, I don't think it's someone I'm subscribed to, but I think I've watched like a couple videos. I don't know this content creator's name, but I know it's an older woman, you know, like a grandma age. And she plays like a lot of JRPGs, which is awesome. She has excellent taste. And, you know, sometimes she'll be doing unboxings and talking about Persona games and stuff. And, you know, and I watched like maybe 2 or 3 of her videos, and her just talking about how she got into them and how, you know, just like it was totally by accident. And really hearing that story, like, to me, that's the part that we should totally embrace, people getting into gaming at later stages in life. I think it goes without say that obviously no one should be giving this woman, and I'm talking about Asha Sharma, no one should be giving her crap or harassing her or anything like that. It's fine if you're not down with the AI. I'm not really either, to be honest with you. But, you know, badgering or harassing someone or just being closed off to the idea of, you know, well, she's not a real gamer. It's just, who cares? I really don't care about that part of it. And the part about like her saying we're gonna bring the blades back from the 360 era, I don't know what to say to that. But what's even worse than that is we hear people loud and clear, and now not only what she's saying, that we're going to go back to the good old days or whatever, but then also going back to the main article that started this video, people that were working under Sarah Bond saying, we didn't like, the campaign for This Is an Xbox, and we always just wanted to go back to doing what Xbox was supposed to do and us do exclusives and blah, 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 blah. It really is like, that's the part out of everything that we heard this past week, out of everything. That is the part that really just makes my skin boil, where I'm like, dude, I'm tired of promises. I'm tired of, just the talk. I'm tired of the talk. We're going to go back to this and we're going to do this. And it just gets old, man. It's really stale at this point. You know what I mean? You're better off not saying anything. I'm going to share something with you guys. Like, this is just a thought I had, a while back. You remember when Phil Spencer was like, exclusives on Xbox are going to be day one on Game Pass? Maybe that was the statement that was bad. Maybe that was the thing he should have never said. Hear me out on this. This is what I'm thinking. So what if Xbox Game Pass did not get those exclusives day one? What if instead Call of Duty is just not on Game Pass? Now, some people might be like, oh no, you gotta give a deal, you gotta make a deal. That was the way they were gonna pull people in. And well, obviously we know now it didn't work, right? It didn't work. So what I'm saying is, if they would have never included something like Call of Duty, if they would have never included something like Doom: The Dark Ages, how about, just a theory, we get the Call of Duty people, we get one of the teams to make us, I'm not saying a Call of Duty game per se, but let's say they make some other game. That team makes a game. And then that's exclusive to Xbox. That's day one on Game Pass. How about that? How about we get the Doom team together and, on the side, they make this other thing. And maybe it's not as polished or it's shiny and cool looking as Doom: The Dark Ages. But just maybe, it's a game that's made out of labor and love, and it just has a talented studio behind it, and Microsoft is, giving them the money, the resources to make this exclusive game, exclusive to Xbox. And my whole point in saying all of this is that, and those are just some examples, but my whole point in mentioning that is they're still making a lot of money. There's still games that Xbox fans have to pay for that they're not going to get on Game Pass. But more importantly, Game Pass prices don't surge. You know what I mean? I think if it would have panned out that way, I think what we would be looking at is we would have still been at $15 a month. I mean, you could be even more rigid than that and just say, you know what? They can make a AA game for us. They can't make a AAA game for us, and you still have to pay for it. And that would be the way to keep Game Pass at $10. And if you're wondering why I'm saying that, I just think the price point is a huge turnoff right now. But you tell someone that Game Pass is $10 and you get access to all these games, of course you could say, yeah, sure, it's not the latest Call of Duty, day one, but maybe after a couple of years they can put a Call of Duty on there. I think that would be fine. But yeah, I don't think, maybe that wasn't the way to pull people in, because now they are losing money from people buying it on Xbox, and now way less games are being bought on Xbox. But, and that's another thing too. I really just don't like the conversation around, making it seem like it's always been this way and people don't buy games on Xbox, which is not true. Has there been a change with that recently due to Game Pass? Absolutely. Absolutely. No one's going to argue that. But to pretend like it's always been like this, get out of here. You know what I mean? The people that are pushing that agenda, pushing that argument, they're absolute clowns. You know who I'm talking about. There was a time to say we care about Xbox, we don't want to lose it as a brand. That ship sailed years ago. That's like the other part of this that makes my skin crawl. Hearing Microsoft talk about how much they care about Xbox as a brand and say that, you know, we care about this, we don't want to lose this community. It's been a success. You're so many years late on this. Years late. Come on, man. Come on. And I know that there's people that are freaking diehards, man. They're freaking diehards. Guess what? I would like to say I'm one of them, but I'm not. Because I like my Japanese games, so I have to have a Nintendo Switchy or whatever Nintendo does next. I have to have a PlayStation because I like my Japanese games. But I want an American company to win. Come on, bro. I want an American company to win, to be successful. And sometimes, you know, some of us look at that and we're like, it's not that hard, man. It's right there. It's in your grasp. The reality is this. What do I control in this? I don't control anything. But what I will say is, I don't really believe anything that Xbox says at this point. I don't believe anything that Microsoft says at this point. And it really just boils down to, what do my friends want to do? You know, if they choose to just say, hey, we don't really care about all this drama and whatnot. We're just used to playing on Xbox, so we're going to continue to do that. Then maybe I'll check out the new system if all my friends want to play there. And if not, I have no problem playing on PlayStation. I already have a PlayStation 5. I'll probably get a PlayStation 6. That's not a big deal to me. As far as, you know, Nintendo Switchy, I have a Nintendo Switch 2. And, you know, in regards to Nintendo Switch 2, I think amongst my friends, now keep in mind, you know, I'm of the older demographic, so like my friends playing on Nintendo Switchy 2 is probably not gonna happen. You know, they want to play where, you know, if they don't have a PC, they want to play where the graphics are more polished, where everything looks a little more crisp or whatever. And I just want to say, if you've made it to this point of the video, I really, really appreciate you listening to the very end. I don't think this is a video that will perform well, but what I will say is this is a huge story, and I wanted to comment on it, but at the same time, I didn't want to spend all the time and effort scripting it and doing all that stuff. So that's why you're getting this kind of video. But just know that, you know, I'm someone that's invested in the Xbox ecosystem. So if you're like, I'm not sure what to do, I'm not sure where I stand on this, like at the end of the day, do what works for you. But anyways, guys, that's pretty much the video. Please let me know where you stand, and there's still a lot more things I could say regarding Xbox as a whole, but I think I'm gonna just leave it there. You know, if you want to comment and say something more, you're more than welcome to. If multiple of my friends came out and just said, we're going to PlayStation, we had enough of this, then it's done. That simple.